All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to the RePHIL studio. It's your host SBPhilos4 here, and as always, get your cans ready. We're gonna refill to 99 as we always do for this set. And today I have the honor and pleasure to welcome two special guests here, Ababa and Manny, to the studio today. So as a brief introduction for both of them, Abba has quite a few titles, most notably in JPdori, first place in the Prismatic Duo event, and for ENdori, first place in the Iris of Secret and Youth event. For Manny is a returning guest, so you already kind of know him and familiar with his achievements. But just to add, recently getting, I believe it's correct, second place in the Let's Scream Medley live event. So
sure, let's go with that.
Let's go with that. Both of you, thank you so much for taking the time to join the studio today.
All right, thank you.
Thank you too.
Is there anything else you'd like to add to the introduction that I did, or anything that I missed, or anything to correct?
No, not really. Other than Abba tried, and he's a motherfucker.
All right. Well, both of you, again, a great pleasure having you on. And, to start things off with the podcast, I always want to ask our guests about, their origin story of how they got into Bandori and such. Manny, I've already asked this question for you, so we don't necessarily have to repeat that. We'll go to Abba instead, actually. Go to Abba and ask you, what is your origin story? How you first got into Bandori, and also sort of, what kind of convinced you to start playing the game?
I first got to Bandori, I think it was the JPdori's end of the first event, the Sakura one.
Mm-hmm.
Sakura blooming party.
Yeah, because at that time I was mainly playing a Starlight stage, and some of my friends there just convinced me to try out this game.
Okay.
I started
Was this
pretty
before
late.
or after the Ugly Dogs?
It was way before. It's like, when was that? 2017, I suppose.
Okay.
So, like, when you first got into the game, was there like a particular thing that drawed your interest and that led you to continue playing the game? Was it like a particular character or band? Or maybe was it just the gameplay in general?
I think it was mainly the gameplay and the cover songs.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, the Starlight stage didn't have a lot of cover songs, while Bandori has quite a few.
For sure. That's definitely one of the main reasons. I think a lot of people who come from similar games, right, either rhythm games or Bushiroad games, when they first get into Bang Dream, it's a lot of the times the first initial impression is definitely the cover songs. The fact that they cover some amazing songs, that very iconic songs, and it's like, oh, okay, that's pretty interesting. So was there a point where you decided on a best girl or a best band?
I'm not really sure.
Sure.
I think my first band that I really liked was Roselia.
Mm-hmm.
I think their songs are pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, well, for sure. It's always really cool to hear and quite interesting to see how everyone starts Bandori a little bit differently. Everyone has their own unique story, and it's pretty neat to hear that you got into it through other Bushiroad games. So definitely really, really neat there.
Now, Starlight Stage is Idolmaster. Has nothing to do with Bushi.
Oh, okay. So funny enough, I totally misunderstood that. For some reason, I thought it was Revue Starlight. But no. Starlight Stage is definitely very different. My apologies. Thanks for correcting. Manny, you're just like, wait a second. This sounds a little funny. Yeah, man. You're just to make sure that I'm on my toes here. So when you were playing Idolmaster, Abba, was tiering something that you did, and did that sort of carry over when you played Bandori?
In solo stage, the only time I tier is because you want the SR cards at the maximum duplicates.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was it called. But when I playing Bandori, I did not really tier until like years after. So I was pretty casual playing Bandori.
Mm-hmm. So what convinced you that you wanted to take that next step to be like, okay, well, instead of just being a casual player, I actually wanted to tier. So what sort of flicked that switch to start tiering?
I think right around early 2019, I realized I had some time and realized the top 100 is pretty doable for me. So the first top 100 I did was the Prelude top 100 was with like the baby wrinkle. That was a pretty fun experience.
Was that JPdori?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was wicked. Yeah, if it's usually JPdori because Prelude was like a year after, and that was when I decided.
Oh, okay. There's a little bit of a connection there. That's pretty interesting. Do you two remember? Because again, once Abba got into tiering, right? I imagine that you were kind of doing the tiering and possibly working with other people to tier. I don't know if you remember, like, when did you first join the JPdori community? But do you remember that that first time?
Yeah, it was when I went for T10 in the ISIO Alta event.
Okay. And that you just so happen, like, so when you did Prelude, that was like all yourself, right? And you just kind of did it all yourself. Wow, that's pretty crazy to do top 100 JPdori. And you said it was, it's pretty doable, right? But obviously, in the perspective of, like a ENdori player like myself, right? We do acknowledge that top 100 for JPdori is definitely a different beast. So we'll definitely talk a little bit more about the differences and similarities between the I guess the servers, or maybe there's a lack of similarities. But before we do, I just want to ask one more thing. Do you two remember when you first met each other in the community? Do you remember, like, when you first met Manny and in the community about in JPdori?
I think the first time we met was in the Bandori server, and I forget how we just started shooting the shit. I think it was about how I thought a certain T1 on JP was account sharing, and Abba corrected me like, nah, it was just that he only had like 40 people in his server.
Yeah, I remember that. There was the June Bride T1. His post, his in JP is like has like 40 people, but I guess Manny mistook it as like 40 people were playing on that account.
Because someone else mistook it as that. And I usually take L's like that, but you know what? I'm glad to learn.
Oh, well, that's funny. Just like be like, just a interesting conversation between what's going on in tiering and like in the Bandori server, and turns out that a bit of communication eventually led to you two being pretty good friends eventually. So
a pair of good degenerates with each other.
Oh boy. So, but that's really cool.
You should see our conversation sometimes.
Oh, maybe it's not conversations that I would want to to showcase.
Hell no! You'd have to demonetize this.
Oh boy! But yeah, but that's really cool to hear that you're able to join the community, like talk with people, right? And I think it's like pretty cool to just be able to discuss with people about how different parts of the community are like, and then be able to build friends and and the community from there. So that's honestly quite cool to hear. Now, switching topics to just in general about I guess the communities, right? I think a lot of people and a lot of our viewers have asked this, and they've highly requested some more information about what exactly is the JPdori community like, because a lot of the guests that come into the studio, they're ENdori guests, and we have a lot of perspectives from the ENdori community, not so much the JPdori community. And of course, Abba, you're sort of like definitely very well instituted there, and Manny, of course, you of course as well.
Not really.
Not really, but you do interact with various people in the JPdori community, though. I do acknowledge that. Can you maybe, for both of you, either of you could feel free to just hop in and answer at any time. Can any of you kind of give an idea or give a sense of what the overall vibe of the JPdori community is like? I'll of course ask some more specific questions about the community afterwards, but just in general, like if someone has no idea what JPdori is like as a first impression, what would you give? What would you say about the community there?
The general community or the tiering?
Let's say the tiering community. Let's be a bit specific here.
Okay.
Oh, did you wanted to talk about the general community?
I don't know. I was about to say that I don't really know too much about the general community.
Okay, well, what do you know about the general community then?
Like, there's a lot of people that love to attend the lives. I see that on Twitter.
Yeah, there's a lot of very diehard fans in terms of being able to go attend the lives, and the fact that they can actually attend the lives.
Yeah,
right?
we
us.
We can't go into Japan right now.
Oh, so sad. That's definitely one thing for sure. It's they definitely have an extra privilege there. So, Manny, what about you? Do you know anything about the community there and what they do?
Not entirely. I've honestly been pretty disconnected from both EN and the JP communities as of late. But from what I do remember, between both the general and the tiering communities for JP, there seems to be a lot less politics in their event runs. That is something that me and Abba do have a bit of a gripe with the EN community. It seems like it's a lot less, I'm just gonna run as hard as I can, and more like, I'll take T1, you'll take T2, I'll take T3. We'll burn nats. It will go like 15-hour days for like 3 days, and then like the rest of the time we'll just burn nats, and then like you'll be done for the event, and that's the event. With JP, from what I've noticed, it's literally a lot more. The competition, just because of the player base being 10 times larger than EN, is a lot less politics. Like, I don't care if you're my friend or not, I'm going to beat your face in. At least that's the vibe that I get as an outsider.
That's fair.
I'll just add that even if people are competing in JP, they're not like hostile towards each other. They're just it's like, good job, you. Like, they are.
Yeah, like I remember Abba's Prisma run. Him and T2 on that event, Reina. They ended up. I'm not sure if you two were friends prior to that, but you do.
Yeah,
the two of you do
help each other.
Yeah, you two did end up, being very good chums. Actually, that's something else that I noticed between the Sakura Aya event that happened right after Backstage Pass 2 with my friend Niboshi. Him and Nebo, he was only planning on like T100ing, but he just went stupid hard on that event to where he ended up, chasing podium and ended up T2. He didn't end up, and if anything, he ended up befriending T1 and T3, from what I remember. And, the two got to be really good chums, which is such a contrast to how Once More Luminous went with between between Bin and himself, where you know.
Yeah, you could definitely see that there's a little bit of like a different, I guess, vibe in terms of, you know, how, tiering servers or like tiering kind of communities in ENdori and JPdori are, right? There's definitely some differences with the game and how, you know, competitive it is. I like to think that, like, you know, if people are like this, like crazy to go for a JPdori, like 1, 2, 3, like if anything, they feel like there's like so like, they're so similar, right? Like they're so similar in that it's like even in such a large group of player bases that, you know, if there's like 1 or 2 or 3 people competing for that really elusive T1 spot, that you really think that, you know, actually they're pretty similar to myself, right? Like they all want to go for this goal and they all want to like compete for that. So I could see how that could end up being like a pretty nice you build a bond on that, even though you do end up competing for that title. Someone in the chat also mentioned how, you know, and again, I guess it's also because of how the game is run. JPdori, once an event is announced, that's sort of like on the spot, right? So if someone wanted to tier that event, well, good luck, you're doing it tomorrow, right? Whereas in ENdori, you know, you could say, oh, well, I actually have like 9 months to prepare for this. So, and then of course that could get a little finicky, and there's a lot of like discussions there. So, you know, again, it's that's I could definitely see how there could be quite some differences there. Abba, have you ever used like a tiering server, or like, you know, were you in tiering servers when you tiered in JPdori?
Yeah, I usually if I'm tiering like for example T10 plus, I usually the first time I tiered T10 plus, I joined T1 server, who the runner who eventually got T1 in the Karata event. The second time I tried to get for podium, but I didn't get it. It was the Sunnyside Life, and it was me and 2 other people. We were merged together in one server.
Remember you did like what, 50 mil in like 7 days or some stupid shit?
Like 5 days, and then I just chilled.
Wow. That's crazy, and that didn't even, that like you were just barely weren't able to get the goal then, right? Or
I couldn't get podium, so I stopped like the second last day.
Oh man, that the level of competition in JPdori is just so intense, right? Like the easiest comparison, it could be lazy, but it's also, you know, it might also be true that, you know, generally if you want a particular title in like, let's say ENdori, you sort of add a 0 to the end, and that's sort of like the relative equivalent of level of competition for JPdori. As an example, you know, a T100 ENdori is like a T1000 in JPdori, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You know, with that level of competition, like, how did you maintain that stamina of just being able to keep up and keep playing and keep competing against these individuals when, you know, that level of competition is just so fierce?
I think it really isn't the end goal that I care about too much. It's more about just running the event and seeing how well I can do.
Well, you know, positive sort of way of thinking things is definitely something, you know, it's a good way to think about it, right? You don't want to like burn yourself over for doing an event, especially when the events could be like 7 days, 8 days, 9 days long, right? So you want to just kind of maintain a, you know, a healthy thought of you know, of competing. I know, Manny, that, you know, in the past you were also very, you know, you were quite interested in just like looking and just kind of tracking how you know, the competition in some JPdori events go. And I do recall that you mentioned there were some pretty crazy events for some of the in terms of competition for some of the events in the past.
Yeah, a big one that I distinctly remember backlogging in Bandori was Summer Glow. Actually, Danny Danny in chat's T1 on EN, the T1 and T2 runner on that event during JP were absolutely fucking crazy. I think other than Ross Part 1, where Ross Part 1's T1 hit 100 mil, those were the only other two people that hit 100 mil on any event. And T3 was actually Abba's friend that was hospitalized and was in 11th and still caught up to 3rd.
What? Hospitalized? Was it serious hospitalization? And oh boy,
I think so.
That's probably something to ask Abba.
Oh no.
Well, I only heard it from other people though.
Oh
yeah, we only ended up befriending Kana. Well, Abba ended up befriending Kana first, and then I ended up befriending him a little later on through Abba and the ugly dogs, or I guess cute dogs.
That's crazy. That is honestly crazy. That just shows how dedicated some people are to the series and to the franchise. In terms of just showing what they could do to tier and compete. It's actually kind of crazy how someone could just be hospitalized and say, you know what, we're still gonna go for it. So it's not something I would recommend to anyone out there. Get hospitalized and continue tiering, but it just shows how passionate these fans are when it comes to tiering. Right? They really go all out when it comes to the competition. It's pretty crazy.
Someone in chat saying T1 and T2 were both hella sus. Actually, T1 was sus. There were a known account sharer. T2, however, I believe again Abba was acquainted with.
I'm not really that much acquainted with T2 either.
That's fair.
More than most people, but
I guess we have one server and then follow each other on Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, that's more than some people can say.
For sure. Well, that really kind of leads to a point where, like, I don't know if there's ever like a sentiment, and Abba, I'm not sure if you know, because again, you're maybe more familiar with the general community, and I think this is a question that's relevant as well to them, but. Again, the series has been going on for quite some time, right? At least the game itself, we're approaching its 5.5 year anniversary. We're going to hear about news very soon, and the upcoming 6th year anniversary. Do you think it based on your perception of some community members or from your friends, Abba, that do you think the game is approaching a situation where maybe it's losing interest or losing fans and it's slowly reaching the end? Or do you think just based on how you see people tier and how people are so fascinated about this series that it's still going to go very strong?
I think definitely compared to before Sekai was released, the tiering scene have died down a bit. Whether people move to Sekai or whether they just stop playing entirely. But the people that I knew, like, I guess you would call that my generation of people that we used to play together in 2020 and I guess early 2021, most of them are not really playing.
Yeah. So
something to take note of, because we also do track JP cutoffs in best loading. In the past, pre-Sakai, pre-3rd anniversary, around before those two times, natural flames on JP were probably at best T5K or T10K, whichever one. These days, natural flames can get you all the way up to like top 2,000.
Oh,
yep, that's true for sure. 'Cause I've been playing pretty casually recently and been getting into top 2K just by burning flames.
Wow. That's like when I play ENdori as well. Like when I play ENdori, I just casually burn flames. Yeah, that's top 2K. So
no. He means like casually, like you're still getting a full like 10 hours of sleep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and not the EN casual where you're getting like 4 or 5 hours of sleep, messing fucking your sleep schedule up just to fucking burn flames on exist for 10 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. But that's quite interesting. It's quite interesting to see how maybe there's a little bit of a dying competition, and I know that Bushiroad is really trying to like build up to the 6th-year anniversary. I know a lot of people in like, let's say, the ENdori community. We don't really have a lot of, there's some people who don't really have a lot of of hope for the game and its direction. But again, there's still some people who are positive about the general direction of the game. And, I'm still relatively optimistic, although I do acknowledge that there are other things for sure that are definitely catching people's attention. So, it's definitely quite interesting to see how the series has developed, and we'll see if that continues to grow, or maybe it's the beginning of the end. So, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes with the game. Again, I want to be optimistic and hope that the game continues to thrive, but you never know. So,
I mean, you got to be realistic about this. There's only so much the super big game update, registered trademark, copyright that is coming on 6th anniversary can do, given the bled out player base at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like there could be an opinion that they might be putting a bit too much onto the 6th-year anniversary, to the fact that they're sort of, they've
been advertising it since 5th.
Yeah, and like they might be jeopardizing a bit of the assets for of the game right now in order to prepare for it. Again, we'll see how this direction goes. So again, maybe in the comments, or any viewers out there want to share their opinions on that, feel free to share as well. It's a topic that has a lot of different sides to it, different faces to it, and whether or not if one thinks it's really the right direction or not. But Bushiroad's taking this direction. We'll see how far it takes them. So, all right. So, moving away from, I guess, the community discussion, Abba, let's learn a little bit more about your tiering achievements, right? So you've already mentioned, how you wanted to go for, these titles, right? Eventually you went from getting T100 in the Prelude event to getting T10 in the Karuta event. And Karuta is a pretty, special event for me, because it was my first ever tiering event in ENdori. So there's a small connection there, a very, very loose connection, but there you go. But for you, when you tiered Karuta, like, was there anything of note that you thought, wow, like, did when you tiered Karuta, was that a little bit of motivation that you wanted to eventually get like a podium later? Or what were your thoughts after tiering Karuta? Was it like difficult? Like, did you think that, I wanted to tier more? Like, what were your overall thoughts?
Yeah, definitely wanted to tier more after it. It was a really fun experience. It was one of the, I guess at that point, one of the most highest T10s in terms of playtime. And
yeah, Kyle did mention that in chat right now. The highest mission life T10, I believe up to that point, or I think it still holds that record.
Wow.
Before the 250%.
Yeah. Well. So
I thought I could do podium, but the next time I went for it was the Sanya Side Dive, which didn't go as well as I hoped.
So obviously, with first of all, going to the Karuta, that's actually quite neat to see that you were sort of involved in like some of like the biggest competitions, right? Like in the biggest competitive T10s, where you really had to put a lot of effort to get that T10. In comparison, the T10 in for that same event, ENdori was very dead, but we'll only talk about that.
I mean, that's just the average EN event.
Yeah,
so you didn't hear that from me.
It is, and of course, generally mixed events in ENdori are not the most popular, even if it involves like really popular characters.
I mean, even full band events aren't that active.
Especially in comparison, again, this is another comparison to ENdori and JPdori, right? Like you could always say that like, oh, an ENdori event is like a little bit different in terms of like the scale of competition compared to JP, but I guess at the same time, it's like, you know, it is a difference of the player base and such.
That's true.
Yeah,
no, that's true. Like Danny mentioned in chat right now, this first medley was what, a 12 to 14 hour medley a 12 to 14 hour run for T10. What was it like on JP? ABBA, like 20, 30?
It's was it 4 mil? Yeah, 4 mil on EN, and I believe
I can bring it up on Bandori.
yeah, on JP it was like 20 mil, so it wasn't that alive in like I don't know. I think these events for the after Sekai release have been pretty dead. Like if JP T10 is less, you're playing less than 50% of the time, it's I'd say it's pretty dead.
That's
yeah. For the record, T10 on this first medley when it happened on JP was 20 mil.
Wow. They did have a few extra days, but still, like that's no you know, that's not going to suddenly 2 extra days is not going to suddenly give ENdori like a way to like triple their cutoff. So you know, again, it's quite interesting. It's quite fascinating to see just how different the benchmarks are, and you know, some people could find it challenging or different, but again, it's also a matter of perspective here. So it's definitely quite interesting. I'll definitely. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It also depends on just how much you bitch.
Yeah.
Like someone was ranting in pubcore throughout like the first half of this medley about how it felt so goddamn lonely, and I'm just like, you know, you could just open the game more and, you know, make more friends, but you know, you didn't hear that from me.
Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, again, you know, medley lives and the first couple of team lives, it's definitely very different where you play by yourself. It is a bit of a different experience for sure.
I mean, even then, you can still VC. I was VCing all the goddamn time during Let's Scream on EN, and you know, I mean, I guess that just means, you know, you just need to find the right people to talk to. If you can't talk and run at the same time, then what the fuck you doing? And maybe open the game more and, you know, make more friends. I don't know.
Yeah. You know, it's definitely a thing, right? Especially when, you know, the game is moving towards more team lives, more medley lives, which means, you know, team lives eventually get the private room support, but the medley lives, they're there to stay, right? For the big whales with the most amount of cards for the attributes and the event. You know, there's going to be a lot more events like that, right? So a lot more opportunity for individuals to just be like actually playing by themselves. So it's all the more important now that, you know, you want to take the time to hopefully best interact with people in the community. Of course, the official Bandori Discord is there. Other bigger communities and smaller communities are there, right? So, you know, it is definitely something that, you know, again, the game is kind of projecting towards, right? Where team lives and medley lives are a little bit more, maybe more tailored towards the higher spenders of the game, or you know, playing by yourself. So yeah, it's definitely quite it's different for sure. It's different for sure. So I do encourage people that, you know, if you want to find opportunities to you know, be able to better tier in these events that focus more on solo and playing by yourself, that, you know, do what you can to build some great connections in the community and build some great friends in the community, right? Like these two, they connected through Bandori community, the Bandori server, as an example. Manny, for you as well, right? I imagine that, you know, even though you're playing by yourself, this is the very first medley live, so, you know, playing by yourself just all over and over again, you didn't necessarily feel like it was that difficult. partially because of the competition, but also the fact that you had people around to just talk with and just have fun with.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, with EN, if you can talk, you can get a T10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Because literally, like 90% of ENdori T10s is just, oh hey, I want a T10. The other 10% is actually playing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fair for sure. For you with again, I was going to talk with Abba, but we might as well talk a little bit about that Medley live while we're still at it, Manny. But with that Medley live, did you expect that this was something that you were going to go for, or did it just suddenly pop up? Be like, oh yeah, this opportunity looks great. Let's go for that T2.
Honestly, it was a matter of I originally wanted T10, then I originally wanted T10. Then I was just blowing past it, diffing everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, I saw podium seems pretty nice right about now.
Yeah.
And then I just kept blowing past. I just kept blowing past T2 and T3. I unfortunately couldn't get past T1, but that's a different can of worms.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Did you had optimal team or?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so you just played a lot. You definitely just played a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I had enough of best in slot.
Mm-hmm.
Given I also did do Fure.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, that's fair.
But like I said, I had enough to run. I had enough of the team to run, and I just just diffed everyone.
Nice. And again, the more you play, and of course you knew, as a pretty experienced tier, you kind of knew, okay, well, I need to play this amount and get these amount of points and just see how far you go. So it definitely worked out in the end. So I imagine that this was maybe one of your more relaxing events. I imagine getting that T2.
Definitely. I somehow was sweating more on Neo Aspect than I was on this.
Well, Neo Aspect is something. Yeah, well, Neo Aspect was a very notorious T100 ENdori. So
I mean, you say that, and I was still balancing 2 jobs.
Yeah. It's something for sure. It's something for sure. Time management, being able to play it. It's obviously there's a lot of things going on there. But regardless, Manny, I do want to congratulate you on that being the very first person in ENdori to have a T2 title in a Medley live. So that's a small accomplishment, you could say, that you have.
Thank you.
Even if all the other Medley lives come forward, you at least have the first one. So, hey everyone, it's Phil here. Hope you enjoyed the episode so far. As a reminder, the RePHIL Studio podcast is available on all of your favorite platforms. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and make sure to give that high rating or the thumbs up whenever you do, because helping the podcast increase its reach to other viewers is greatly appreciated. In terms of other content, check out my VODs channel, the card description above. Consider subscribing to check out other content. And also, if you want to be a part of the content, join the Anga Academy Discord server, links in the description below, where you can contribute to the studio question every week and interact with special guests featured on the podcast. So looking forward to seeing you there. Last but certainly not least, a big shout outs to all of my Filler Nation members who've been constantly supporting me in my content. I really appreciate each and every one of you, and you get shout outs on pretty much every podcast episode. So thank you so much for your support. If you really like my content and would like to support me, join the Filler Nation by either subscribing to my Twitch channel or by joining my Patreon. Links in the description below. There's also a new feature. You can give us super thanks through my YouTube, so you could do that as well. Any support is greatly appreciated. Let's get back to the episode. Well, we'll talk about first times in ENdori very soon, because our other guest, of course, Abba, has one of his own. Before we talk about that, let's go back to the discussion of what you mentioned about you getting boated in Summerside. Of course, I don't want to talk too much about the boat part, but I imagine, Abba, for you, right, playing all that work to only not get the title might be a bit demotivating, right? So was there any part where you decide, like, did that after you got voted, like what did you kind of think about in terms of like not trying to give up and eventually, you know, plan for the future and try to get another title in the future?
Yeah, I was just thinking that I need to try harder next time.
Mm-hmm. 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 And by trying harder, like what exactly did you maybe adjust, or what did you think that you adjusted to try and improve your tiering? Because I know a lot of people, like, you know, tiering is just tap tap tap, right? Just play as much as you can, but there's a lot of small fine things you have to keep in mind that could really help make or break how well you tier. So, you know, what kind of adjustments did you realize that you did when you went from getting voted to, you know, eventually, as an example, getting first place in the Prismatic Duo event?
I'll just say I don't think even now I can beat the Sunnyside T1.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually one of the best tiers in JP right now, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Base Chun Chun.
Yeah. He recently T1 the Spotlight Assertion.
Let me see if I can pop up the graph for Spotlight Assertion.
He always was like 60+ hours at the start.
That was absolutely ridiculous. A ridiculous T1 versus T2 diff.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, it's good that he's still going at it. You know, some people at that point would still just like maybe just retire and, you know, call it quits.
Four T1s.
Wow.
Yeah, he did. Sunnyside, Ross Part 2, Spotlight Assertion.
Fanro.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Interesting mix of events. the way that he's trending, he might get a T1 in like everything in all the events.
For the record, this is the Spotlight Assertion JP T10.
Wow.
That blue line that hits like over 70 mil is Chun Chun.
That is something, you know. That, you know, there's.
All right. Nebi does bring up a good point that I should show the graph where they went up against two cheaters.
Oh boy.
Because they're T3. They're also T3, I believe, on Blue Rose Pride, Demon Akko, and then also this event, The Future Will Surely Be Rosy. And T1 and T2 are, well, pretty notorious cheaters. One's a Chinese account sharer, and then T2 ended up getting banned on a later event.
Oh.
Because they literally went Y equals MX plus B. As in, like, their line was linear.
No breaks. Oh boy.
Literally no breaks. But let me get the screenshot.
Yeah, that's definitely something. You know, again, when you're playing against other people, there are definitely people that you can look up to and realize, man, these people are like really competitive. They're really good tiers. And you could definitely, you know, for some people, like, they might go look at that and, you know, try to compare themselves to them. And I don't know if that's really the best thing to do, right? Everyone is different, and how they approach tiering is always different. I don't personally think it's, I guess, maybe fair to compare yourself to someone else when, you know, all your experiences are different, all your limits are different, right? So, you know, that's definitely something to keep in mind.
It's definitely not a healthy mindset. We have been noticing, we've been noticing a large influx of vents from certain individuals that I will keep anonymous over how they're a failure of a fan because they T2'd a certain event. Even though that T2 of theirs is better than 99.99% of EN T1s. But again, you didn't hear that from me.
Yeah, again, it's all a matter of perspective, and again, it's really just showing how hard you really want to work and show your devotion for the band or the event, because that's all why we tier, right? We all want to have fun and really show our passion for it. So, but Abba, again, it seemed like you were able to sort of figure something out, because eventually you took that experience to heart and were able to get first place in Prismatic Duo, which is I imagine was a pretty competitive event. Features the Hikawa twins, two very popular characters on a Christmas theme. Definitely something that's quite, I imagine, very popular. But you kind of came out on top there. So, what kind of what was that experience like, getting that T1?
It was pretty surreal. I think during the last day when I parked, I posted something in Best Story like, I can't believe this is real or something. Or am I dreaming? Because just getting T1 after like an exhausting 9 days is like so surreal.
So obviously, as a JPdori player, you don't really have time to prepare. I don't think this was an event that was like leaked like maybe a couple of days before, maybe in like a Bandori live stream. This was just literally said, okay, here you go. This is a Christmas event. So when you saw that event, when you saw that event, were you immediately convinced like, okay, this is like, I have to go for T1 here? Was it like that when you saw that event?
No, actually at first, I just wanted to do top 100, but afterwards, CEO, someone who also tiers JP server a lot, he invited me to the cute dog server.
And
the grumpy old man.
Yeah, CEO is pretty grumpy. And then from there on out, we were playing. So in the end, there was 3 people that going for T10 plus in that server, and I got T1. Another person got T3 and another person got T7.
Wow. That's amazing. And these like little smaller sort of community groups able to come together, be like, let's work together and do that. So
there were less than 30 people helping, and we were able to like run the entire event without any problems. Yeah. Again, if all of you have like a relatively similar goal, you're all going to be playing relatively similar hours. So, sometimes it's quality over size or quantity. But again,
quality over quantity.
Yeah.
And people help. They really help so much. Like people would help 5 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours even. Steel was in a room, and I think he played over 100 hours for his T100, which is like over what the cutoff is. So he could fill the room.
He ended up, I think, 33rd when he was aiming for 34th.
Oh, unlucky. Trying to get the Sio number, failed.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I think when I was backlogging Bandori, ababa was bitching that CL kept outscoring him in the rooms because abba was dying.
Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, that's VS lives, right? VS lives are something, right? So at least with you, abba, right? Because again, you eventually decided instead of going for a casual T100, you went for a T1. So how many hours did you play every day on average?
I think for that one is like 22
hours. Crazy. Yeah, pretty expected. If we're going for a T1, it's so much competition. It's a lot of hours. So,
especially considering who the T2 on Prismatic Duo JP was.
Another famous figure. Very.
I brought them up earlier, Reina, about their 3 other T2s.
Oh boy.
They lost on the last one before they retired. They ended up losing to another Chinese account sharer.
Man,
very unlucky.
That's a rough timeline. That's a rough timeline for that one tier. Kind of feel bad for sure.
If there's any justice, then the aforementioned account share actually got banned on a later event.
So
they ended up getting banned on Sakura Glow, the Medley event, right after Backstage Pass 5 events, which I've actually T1'd part 1.
Oh, so you have another T1 as well.
Yeah, backstage pass 5.
Oh wow! So you know, it really showed that how much experience you kind of gained from ever since, I would say, even from the ISIO event, right? Just the fact that you had a really competitive T10, and then learning from the hardships of getting voted to multiple T1 titles in JPdori. So that's a big accomplishment for you, Abba. So. You know, for you, when it comes to tiering, is there anything in particular that you think like makes you like motivated, or makes you feel that this is how I'm able to tier like this well? Is there any one particular thing that sort of that you have or you have up your sleeve that's like, okay, this is what makes me like be a very good tier, and be able to get those T1 titles?
I think the main thing is to just play and have fun,
Mm-hmm.
and the rank, I think that would come eventually.
Mm-hmm. 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 And again, you mentioned earlier, right? Just you don't necessarily worry too much about the numbers and freak out about that, right? Just kind of do whatever you can and just push yourself as hard as you can towards that. So. Well, that's good. That's good. It's inspiring to hear that. Again, a lot of people get really demotivated by getting voted, but you eventually sort of be able to change that and continue to improve. And here we are with a couple of T1 titles.
Or you end up balling so hard you get called an account sharer.
Well, that's bound to happen. That's bound to happen.
The greatest compliment.
The haters will start hating. So now, Abba, before we wrap up pretty soon, I do want to briefly ask you, because you also did something, I don't know, a little bit maybe silly, because not only you are someone who has a T1 title in JPdori, you also have a T1 title in ENdori. I don't know if anyone, I think maybe there's at least like maybe one other player or maybe 2 other people that have that honor or privilege to have both a T1 title in JPdori and ENdori, but you're definitely one of them, if not the only one. So
I'm pretty sure he's the only one.
Yeah,
that's only other. Nebo, he would have the title, but like I mentioned earlier, he got T2 on Dance Full Blooming JP instead of T1.
I see. Well, Abba, let's talk. Let's hear from you. So, why? Which devil convinced you that you're just gonna grab a T1 title in ENdori?
I think I looked at the Team Live format, and I think it might be fun to try it out, because at that point I'm pretty far from the JP community, and about EN I can't really get much people to help, so I feel like Team Live is pretty much the best one to run.
At least early Team Lives.
Yeah,
at least early Team
Lives. I think the next Team Live coming in ENdori, I think will have private rooms. So
Cadenza will have private rooms.
Yeah, I think so. So you basically, again, Abba, for you basically chose the very first Team Live. It technically was the very first Team Live in JPdori. Obviously, then it eventually became the first Team Live in ENdori as well. So that's a pretty interesting perspective, where maybe not necessarily you're tiering as much in JPdori, and with ENdori, it's all about how well you play yourself and such. So. Was it like a almost instinctive decision, like a couple days before or maybe a couple months before, that you're like, oh, I want to, maybe try this out?
Oh, I was just have like a tiny bit of interest in this. And then someone on Bandori said they were going to podium this, and I jokingly said something like, oh, I'll book them. And then they said like, try.
Challenge accepted.
They ended up getting 9th and recently uninstalled because they voted.
Oh, unlucky. But yeah,
not unlucky. This they're just fucking desserts. They deserve to get voted every fucking second of it.
Oh boy, maybe some little minor beef here and there, but I won't indulge on this any further.
When all of us what because all of us among the Bandori regulars saw this, we all just went absolutely bananas and started laughing our asses off. It was hilarious. Oh my god, it was so fucking funny seeing this one guy that ended up just their highest event rank was a flameless T50 on Little Rose Harmony, and here they are challenging ABBA to a fucking podium fight.
Although I don't think it's maybe it may sound like we're just bullying them, but actually the first thing I remember them doing is asking for like the cutoff in the Bandori, but they're being like extremely rude about it.
Yeah,
because cutoff is something people provide on their own. It's not really like we just don't. If we don't have it, we don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be rude.
And they were also definitely playing catch up. They were at all times during Arabia Glow, because this was when it was around Arabia Glow when it happened. They were constantly in like 120s, 130s, playing 16 hours a day flameless, and it's like, where's my T100 cutoff? Where's my T100 cutoff? It's like, bro, just burn the fucking stars. And then they gave us their reasons why they value flameless tiering, and that's when he's like, and then that's when ABBA jokingly said, I'm a run Iris just about you, and then Try Motherfucker happened.
Oh boy. Well, that direction of why that you wanted to tier that event went in a much different direction than I anticipated. Quite a bit different, but it
was a very good bit of popcorn.
Also, I like Mashiro and Morphonica.
So you do at least acknowledge you do quite like Morphonica, so
yeah,
which is a bit of motivation as well. Okay, good. Well, I mean, because you don't really play ENdori, ABBA, right? So like building a team for that, was that like a bit of a nightmare, or did you like, you had optimal or close to optimal?
I had optimal on that event. It's not that hard to build because you know the team like very well in advance. For tickets and stuff, you can just aim for those.
Yeah, for the record, he did that on an alt, and then he did Power of Love T1 and Brighter T10 on another reroll that has full power Pure Body. So do with that information what you will.
That event was I think I was actually gonna aim for T1 in that event first, but because the Ian had the speed up, I could not play for the first 2 days.
Yeah,
because I think the speed up started right at Ross Part 2, which was right before Brighter.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So it's gonna be like it's kind of surreal to think that it's gonna be the 1 year anniversary almost since the speed up. I think it's gonna be the 1 year anniversary. God. Yeah, that's crazy.
God. Thanks for making my beard a little more gray. I'd say my hair, but I don't have any.
Well, going back again, Abba, like just the fact that you're able to do the team live, and did you find it to be more challenging or less challenging? Like, what would you find about that team live event? How did you feel about that event overall? Like,
compared to Medley, it's definitely easier. I think it's around the same. It might be like a bit harder than versus live to tier because of the how the bonus works. So if you just miss one note, your score will drop by like 10% or something.
Oh yeah, the stages are really brutal on team versus. Especially health. Let's say you're doing, the hours that ABBA did, and you're just dying on everything. Health stage is your literal worst enemy.
Yeah, for sure, and it lasts for 3 hours. So those 3 hours are gonna be, those 3 sets or quote unquote sets, but there's not really sets in team life, but a little bit, definitely a lot more painful. So, but you were able to persevere, ABBA, and able to get it. So, overall like good experience, you would say?
Yeah, it was pretty fun, but it was not as enjoyable as I thought because there was a lot of waiting in the room.
Well, that's yeah.
That's team life for you.
That's the design. That's ultimately the design of the event. A lot of waiting, a little bit of RNG because you never know what your teammates are up to, and you might have a teammate that has the worst internet connection ever, and it's just just a lot of waiting and such. So
well, those damn Russians. No offense to any Russians in the audience or any Russians listening to this in post, but god damn, y'all had some real nasty connection issues.
Yeah. So
same with the Genshin names. Oh my God, the Genshin names are bad.
Maybe it's because they're playing Genshin at the same time.
Oh my God, if they are, I'm going to smack them.
Yeah, but it's great. Again, big congrats to Abba being the you have a very notable achievement here, being the very first team live T1 haver in ENdori. So all team lives after, they could have their T1s, but you're the very first one. And you're also the very first one, at least to all of our knowledge, that to have a JPdori T1 and an ENdori T1. So, maybe you may not be, you may compare yourself to Chun Chun, but I think Chun Chun, you have something over Chun Chun. Quite a few big accomplishments there. So big congrats on that.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So, let's wrap up very soon. We're pretty much at the time here, but just before I wrap up, I just want to share a quick studio question that I want to share with you two as guests as well as the audience, because I always like to talk about a studio question just every week, just kind of have a fun discussion about a particular topic. We've talked about this topic quite a bit, like just kind of scattered throughout the podcast. So I think it'll be pretty interesting to talk about these individuals. Or I guess this sort of topic here in this question. And the question I have is, what would you do to implement, specific more countermeasures against the quote unquote unethical players? Now we could lead, unethical could lead to various, branches, right? There's of course the account sharing side, or the botting side, the cheating side, right? Or maybe people who just have really, just don't express very good behavior on when they play. So what necessarily would you do? I know right now the game has measures like, you be featured block if you grief in rooms too much, but it's obviously not perfect. It's a bit of a tough question, so I don't know if you have any particular thoughts or opinions on that.
I just have one major thing is, do you know those players that say like A to Z equal to DC or like drop fever, right?
Yeah.
Maybe just make the fever only require the 4 out of 5 people to activate, because dropping the fevers is not very fun.
Mm-hmm.
Because if someone wants to do it on purpose.
Yeah. Again, I really don't know if there's a way to necessarily immediately take action on those that we know that are obviously maybe using bots to help increase their score or inflate their score. And I know account sharing is also a very, very touchy subject. I don't really want to open that that can of worms there. But some things that could possibly at least maybe discourage these unethical players and such. So
I think Bandori actually does a pretty good job in the score ranking side for they ban the AP bots quite frequently, and they can tell whether a score is above the maximum. I remember in EN there was the Moman event was the T1 was above the theoretical maximum score, so it took action and actually banned them.
Yeah, they ended up it ended up being that that they were AP botting, and how AP bots work is that they count everything. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's a tap, a hold, a slide, a flick, doesn't matter. It counts everything as a tap. So theoretically, you could start and end. So with an AP bot, you start and end a hold basically at the same time, which allows you to effectively get more in a similar way to song optimizations. You could get more notes in a skill section than what is normally possible. And that's how they caught them. On top of the fact that they were just being an absolute fucking dickhead and trying to dodge the question every single goddamn time about how they got way above the theoretical max.
Yeah. So again, it's not an easy question to answer, right? This what they're doing, but again, feature block, again, it's not perfect. I know a lot of people in the past have kind of got screwed over because of feature block. In terms of tiering.
Nebby.
Rip Nebby. Sorry, Nebby.
I'm sorry, Nebby.
Yeah. But also, like, I don't know if there's a way, and this is could be a bit too much, but maybe there's a way to sort of, how in various different other games you could kind of check your opponent's connection status and how they are, what's their ping, or not really necessarily what's their ping, but how stable their connection is, and they could have a green bar, yellow bar, red bar. Again, that could be really difficult to implement in a game like Bandori, but I think as a theoretical case, that could be pretty interesting to see. This person maybe have, is shown to have not the strongest connection, or maybe if they're seen to be someone who disconnects often, they have some sort of warning on their name or something on their banner that says this person DCs, and it's it's, I don't know if that's the best way of doing things, but that could be something as well. And also, another thing that could be suggested is a place to possibly report players, or a little bit easier within the game. Now, of course, that could be abused really easily for the wrong reasons. So I don't really necessarily think that's the best way. But again, there could be some other measures. Just kind of throwing out ideas out there. So
something else that we've actually talked about in Bandori between me, Abba, and a bunch of the other regulars is to check how many times the account has been transferred between devices, because that is a major way of how people account share. It's not just you have 15 degenerates in a room and they each take shifts on the account.
Yeah, it's very likely that they'll be transferring between accounts. Yeah,
transferring between devices. You have though at the same time that could also be abused, given that Japanese runners, especially in the Japanese version, runners do generally recommend you have two devices for running. So you have say your main iPad that you're going to go absolutely bananas on, and then while that one's charging, once it gets the low battery, you switch to your secondary device, go bananas on that. By the time that second device's battery is dead, you go back to the main one, just go bananas again.
Manny, I just want to point out that the reason why they require the two device is that one device is for playing and the other device is for the voice chat.
Oh, for communication? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was two devices for playing.
Don't worry, I thought that at first too.
Okay. Well, that's actually a pretty interesting strategy. Not a bad strategy, but I never thought about that.
In JP tiering, they're always in the VC.
Yeah, I actually snuck my way into a JP tiering server right now for, I believe, the Summer Festival Chisato event, and T4 was in VC basically the whole time.
Wow. Yeah. So again, there's some similarities there. At the end of the day, kind of going back to the other topic, right? There's some similarities in the tiering servers where there's always going to be someone in VC, and you want to hang out and chill, and that's definitely something that happens in both communities. That there's always going to be someone who wants to VC, want to talk and have some fun. So, but yeah. that's basically the question. Again, if anyone else wants to add to the studio question, feel free to let us know in the chat below, as well as in the comments on this video as well. So we're out of time here, both of you. But again, thank you to both of you for taking the time to join us in the studio today. A great pleasure to have both of you on. Just before we end off, I know there's probably some other achievements that both of you might have had, but maybe you could summarize that as part of your final words, and also in general, share some shout outs to the people out there.
You first, Abba.
Yeah, we'll start with Abba.
Yes, I'll just shout out the homies at Cute Doggy Clan.
Cute Doggy Clan, best group of people. Absolutely fucking degenerates.
No, well, they will definitely listen to this podcast after, probably once it's out, eh? We'll see.
Also, we'd like to shout out Alan.
Shout out to Alan.
Alan, my idol. Everyone, spam Patio Raven chat.
Yep, for sure. And again, for both of you, I know, we don't really have the time to talk about this, but also, big shout outs to your song titles as well. I know it was briefly mentioned in the chat. We didn't get time to really talk about it. And I know, Abba, you mentioned that you really love the gameplay and about the game, and you're also pretty good at the game as that too. So, big shout outs to you on getting song titles there too. Yeah,
it was it's a pretty big learning process from getting song titles to like one song podium in JP.
Mm-hmm. And did you also have a song title in ENdori as well?
Yeah, I have a few.
Few as well.
Just a few.
Just a few. That's honestly pretty. I don't know how much of a difference you think going from JPdori to ENdori. I know JPdori has like Sonic Sync, and generally game flows better. ENdori could be a little slow at times, but seems like that doesn't really affect you. Seems like you get the hang of it pretty well.
Yeah, I think the only main difference is that I use the finger tap sounds, and JP I use the sound effect.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that. That's a pretty good, fun strategy too. So, Ben, Abba, for you, all the best in terms of your, again, thank you for joining. All the best in your future events that you may or may not do, whether song tiering or event tiering. So we'll hear from you again soon on your achievements.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and Manny, last shout outs for you as well, and final words.
Yeah, I got a few shout outs. I got a shout out. Lovely server. It's a group of the old regulars in PubCord. It's where I've been hiding my degeneracy for a while, ever since I got banned from PubCord. Just a fileable ban, but all the same, just where I've been able to hide my absolute degeneracy. And also, I'd like to shout out Lovely himself, because he's the actual T2 on Let's Scream. I trolled all y'all.
All right. Let's call it a day here, guys. Let's call it a day. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of the RePHIL Studio. Don't forget to check out all of our favorite podcast platforms. YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and of course, feel free to join the Academy Discord server to get involved with all of the discussions with the podcast, as well as meet special guests like Fake T2, Let's Screeeam, Manny, and such. But thank you to both of you for joining. The set has been complete. Please join us and get your cans ready for the next refill. So until then, we'll see you all next time. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Pablo, my hero.